How you doing?
All right.
Great. Thank you for having me. And thanks to Mitch for his kind words. I really appreciate that. I want to say back to him that I have actually recommended some of his work and his book to some of my own family members who are teachers. So my daughter being one of them. She's a middle school art teacher. We're a family of middle school teachers, essentially. And I recommended some of his work for her art class that she teaches.
Nice. It's great when we can all support each
That's
other.
a huge resource. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge resource for him. All right. So you're an author, executive director of the Art of ISS, or In-School Suspension. You had a fantastic book, also called The Art of In-School Suspension, which I absolutely love. And I know it's making a huge impact all over this country as you're working with folks, educators and schools. So let's dive into what everyone wants to know because the title is pretty catchy. I know a lot of folks are like, oh, I don't understand. Like, ISS is this horrible place. And I know models, as far as what it could look like traditionally, are very, how should I say this? Very robotic, very standard. We all kind of have this understanding of what it looks like from maybe when we were students, maybe based on what it looks like on your campus today. So can you just kind of work through, Johnathan, why you even created this concept, this book of Art of ISS, and why you found that this needs to change just as a universal model?
Well, yeah, because the universal model, the traditional model, I should say, doesn't work. We have data that shows that in-school suspension is as effective as out-of-school suspension, which we all know is there's no efficacy to that. It is, it's 100% loss of instructional time. It doesn't really improve behavior outcomes. It actually makes them worse. And then you'd think in-school suspension would be better. It was designed to be better. Somebody back in probably the 50s or 60s, I don't know, I can't remember the date when it actually was invented, thought like, oh, you know what? It'd be better than letting kids just, tear up the neighborhood and keep them out of schools. We just kept them in school and that'll make everything better. And it didn't. So, just a few years ago, I became an in-school suspension teacher, I guess 7 years ago, but I just sort of stumbled upon the fact that this was just so not working. And the reason I stumbled upon it was because people were coming up to me so shocked at what I was doing, particularly at the campus level. But I'll let you ask me more about that in a bit. But yeah, it was just one day I just sort of clicked like, oh, this isn't just a problem where I am. This is a problem everywhere.
Yeah, so let's talk about that because obviously you're in the midst of it. Like you are in the ISS space. So let's talk about kind of that turning point for you. And what were some of the problems that you saw where you're like, oh, this is not sustainable. Like this is a space that is not being effective and utilized correctly. And I'd love to hear about your journey as when that was that you made that shift.
Yeah, so as you know, I came from, I spent 7 years teaching high school ELA on a campus for students with severe emotional disturbance. That was like my first 7 years as a teacher, special education, high school ELA. And at the end of that 7 years, I was looking to make a change, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I ended up taking an in-school suspension position in the same district. And like I said, I had people coming up to me, right away on the first year, teachers on my campus approaching me saying, "Hey, our students are getting more done with you in a day than they'll do in my class in a whole week. Like, what are you doing? Are you hurting them? We won't tell on you. Just tell us how you're getting them to work." And so it was just obvious from the beginning that one of the big issues was that learning was not consistently occurring at all in the in-school suspension room. And I verified that, many times over in other in-school suspension rooms I've worked on or trained or consulted on. It's just not working for various reasons. But I can tell you when exactly I learned for myself that this was, just a broader issue, because the second year that I was an ISS teacher, the district, somebody at the central office decided that my room was a model in-school suspension room. So thank you, overlords. Appreciate it. And then at the same time, our district was mentoring another district on PBIS implementation, and a neighboring district on PBS implementation, and they were all of a sudden. I don't even think that I was warned, or I might have been. I can't remember, but there's like 15 people from leadership in my room, not just from my district leadership, but from the other district leadership. And I think one or two of them were like associate superintendents. And I realized that I knew immediately that this was historic because people do not give any attention to in-school suspension. People do not really often think about it. Even principals on their own campus don't want to think about the in-school suspension room. It's just sort of like a necessary evil that they have. And but these folks are like really interested in what I'm doing. They're like taking notes and asking questions, and they're just like, and I start asking them like, well, oh, have you seen this? And they're like, no, we've never seen anything operate like this before. And so that was when I knew, like, oh, this is a much broader issue than just my neck of the woods. And then I did more research and was like, oh, this is a broader issue across the country. The main issue here is that we are, I mean, there's multiple types of in-school suspension rooms that, they don't work for different reasons. I can give you what those are, but the main issue that we're dealing with here is that we are doing harm because it is a total loss of instruction on the day. And there are no studies that say, yeah, it's perfectly all right for our most at-risk kids to miss multiple days of instruction throughout the year because of behavior like that. All the studies say the opposite. Like, we have to be able to still educate these kids, even though they are being disciplined or they're in an exclusionary discipline environment. And so that's where my program comes in. It's called trauma-informed ISS. So it's not just all academics, but it is strong on the academic side because that's the harm. We're trying to eliminate the harm of the exclusionary discipline.
You talked about the trauma-informed ISS model. So you have four key pillars there. Will you just break those down and share a little bit of what this model looks like and how it's different from traditional ISS spaces?
Yeah, so the four pillars of trauma-informed in-school suspension are really just the four pillars of trauma-informed teaching applied to the in-school suspension room. So I didn't invent safety, transparency, collaboration, empowerment. Those would be the four. That's something that just goes for basic trauma-informed teaching. I'm sure somebody before me got on and talked about something similar. But as they apply to the in-school suspension room, I'll break them down for you. So safety is, as Mitch mentioned, creating a safe, predictable environment. So the students and their trauma are not going to respond well to unexpected redirection, surprises. When it comes to redirection, they are going to function best in an environment where they know exactly what is expected of them and what to expect from the adult in the room. And so, and also, neutral, calm redirection goes with safe, predictable environment, as does obviously not yelling and berating students or being sarcastic or any of those things. And that then, of course, you have transparency, and that is really an extension of safety. So with transparency, I like to think of the Brene Brown quote. The Brene Brown quote, I'm losing it. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind.
Yeah.
Because that translates to pretty much anything in education, right? If we're not being clear, we're not being kind. And so one of the things that in-school suspension rooms you'll typically see in a trad in-school suspension room is that they're going to have the students come in and copy the rules right away. And that is a terrible idea for two reasons. One, you are not being clear. It's not a way of clearly communicating your expectations. And it is communicating something. What it's communicating is that this is a punitive environment, and we're going to force you to do this thing that doesn't really have any benefit to you or us. It's busy work, but we're just going to make you do it. So you're just communicating to the student that we have some control over you. And there are better ways of gaining instructional control over your classroom, whether it's an in-school suspension room or a regular classroom. And that's not one of them. So have them copy the rules, not a good idea. The other reason it's not a good idea is because you are immediately squashing any momentum you could be building when it comes to actual assignment completion. And that's where we want to start building momentum in the in-school suspension room. So transparency is important. The way you communicate your expectations to your students is extremely important. We have a whole system for it called Win the Morning, Win the Day. It's different than what other in-school suspension rooms do, but we get different results. And then after transparency, collaboration, super, super important. when I talk about collaboration, we're talking about keeping the students connected to their learning environment. And so the first level of collaboration by necessity is teacher to teacher or teacher to ISS room monitor, whatever you want to call them. And this is so that we can have all of their assignments readily available to us by first period, essentially, or by the first 20 minutes of first period, because it takes us about 20 minutes to go through the rules and expectations. Because we don't, then we are, by definition, the student's disconnected. We're also communicating again to the student, well, we want you to do your work, but we don't really know where it is or exactly what it is that you're supposed to do. We're not clear on that. So we're communicating to them that academics really aren't that important here. So we need to have that collaboration ready to go. We have another system for collaborating with school teachers. It's called a spreadsheet. It's very simple to use. You can do it. There's not some big expensive product that EdTech invented. I'm sure they could create something and it'll be worse than a regular Google spreadsheet that's free. Yeah, that's all you need. It's super, super easy. It takes a little bit of time to get set up, but communicating with teachers is very important so that we can keep our students connected and that the work is relevant to them. And then the second level of collaboration is, of course, teacher to student. And this is where people don't understand the power of an in-school suspension room when it's done properly, when it's done the way it was probably supposed to be envisioned from the first person who envisioned it, which is that I have an eternity with my learners compared to a regular classroom teacher. Like they have them, 40 kids or 30 kids or whatever for 45 minutes at a time. I've got a smaller group of kids usually for 7.5 hours. So I have so much more time for one-to-one support with the kids. We're backfilling deficits, skill deficits, stuff they didn't learn in fourth grade or third grade. We're making sure there's no zeros in the grade book, so we're sending them back to the classroom caught up. We're able to do so much more than a regular classroom teacher has the time to do sometimes with some of these most at-risk kids. So it's actually more of an opportunity that we're missing if we're not structuring the room correctly. And then finally, empowerment is the last one. And we don't empower our children by allowing them to flaunt the rules or by not holding them accountable for their behavior. Instead, what we do is, because I have a system for communicating my expectations and because I have a system for collaborating with these school teachers to get their work, and I have another system that I haven't mentioned for tracking assignments and documentation of behavior and all that within the room to organize everything, I can offer my students the choice of, where do you want to start today? You want to start with math? Great, we'll start with math. You want to start with ELA? We'll start there. When you do social studies, we can start there. It doesn't matter. As long as I don't have something that's time sensitive, like a quarterly assessment or something like that, then we can start where you want to start. And what we find is that students will either start with their most preferred subject or their least preferred subject. And it does not matter, because either way, we're building momentum with the assignment completion. We're giving them some positive reinforcement as they're getting things done. And they're going to leave feeling accomplished, at least, of something. And they're still going to intensely dislike their time in in-school suspension. I promise you that. We're not eliminating the consequence. We're eliminating the harm of the exclusionary discipline.
I'm so glad you said that. I want to make a connection similar to what we talked about, like having kind of a thread. Mitch talks about the MTSS framework. Do you see the trauma-informed in-school suspension fitting within that system?
Yeah, I don't know how it works without it, honestly. It still has a piece missing, in my opinion, and trauma-informed in-school suspension is the missing piece. Because if you look at MTSS, multi-tiered systems of support, your most bang for your buck, everybody will tell you, is high quality tier one teaching, right? That is teaching and behavior support at what everybody gets at the tier one level, right? That is going to be the most impactful on our students, is everybody in a classroom has those strong supports. And when you look at MTSS, it's usually presented as like a pyramid. And at the very top, you have tier one teaching and behavior support together at the top. Because how do you separate the two, right? You can't have high quality learning going on in a classroom where there is no classroom management, right? That's important. Then immediately when you get down to tier two, you've got it split into like behavior support stuff or tier two academics. And what you really need a little bit in between there is for students who make poor choices time and again, is another level that is Okay, we are tier two, high quality tier two academic intervention and high quality tier two behavior intervention. And when you see that on a campus, then you are going to be able to give your teachers, some of whom, who are struggling and learning the job still, or, just need to make gains or increase their skills, you're going to make that easier on them. Because it's hard to learn in an environment where you just feel like you're constantly under fire trying to survive. So to provide some sort of pressure release for teachers that is not creating more work for them, because another big issue with in-school suspension is that you're creating more work for a teacher because yeah, you got the kid out of class for 3 days, but now you're sending them back to school 3 days behind in instruction, and they didn't really, oftentimes they were either incentivized because there was no real consequence to the ISS. It was almost incentivizing their behavior because they let them sleep or play video games on their laptop or whatever, or it was just a dungeon in school suspension room, where you just have kids sitting in a room doing time, and they're still going back 3 days behind in instruction, and now the teacher has to either make that up or eat that on the testing data. And so you need something in between to kind of give them the ability and the breathing room to be able to do their job.
Let's talk about the model and what things need to change, right? Because I'm probably assuming that folks are here, they're teacher, administrator, whatever their title, and they're like, oh, I love this. This sounds so much better than what we've existing. It probably looks more like a holding tank versus like a high impact intervention. So, what are some things that need to shift as far as maybe a mindset or logistics to really make this happen?
Mindset shifts would be, because again, principals don't want to ever think about their in-school suspension room. They don't want to have to, and I don't blame them. It's not the place that you want to spend a lot of your time. You want to be working with teachers to get them to be doing that high quality tier one behavior support and teaching at the same time. So that's not IS is not where you want to be spending your time. And I can just brag for a second that the administrators have not been ever called to my in-school suspension room in more than 4 years. I have not. They don't remember what the in-school suspension room even looks like. So if you have a good program run, you don't have to think about it. But the mindset that needs to shift really is that this is needs to be looked at as this is a high quality intervention, or can be. And it's not going to just be a place where we send kids to do time or this necessary thing that we have to do on our campus because we don't want to spend, X number of OSS days because of, limits or data or whatever. So the shift needs to be that this is an opportunity to work with these kids, to get them caught up, to get some skill work in, to get some, and also some targeted behavior intervention in. And then logistically, you've got to train. You need a highly trained person in there, and that's why I created, not just wrote the book, but also created the online course and the in-person stuff that I do, because you've got to train these folks. When I was made an in-school suspension teacher, it was the training was here's the keys, and make sure that if 10 kids go in, then 10 kids come out. There is no real training for a really solid training, quality training for in-school suspension teachers, in my opinion, until now. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any outside of mine at all. So it's something that you want to start there, and then logistically, uh, apart from the training, I guess, just support your in-school suspension program once you've got somebody in there who's trained. Give them some time to get themselves together and learn how to structure it properly. Make sure you're supporting them. I give for administrators, I give administrators if a school buys the course for their teacher, I always give an admin course also, like a free license to the admin, so that they can understand what I'm looking for and what they should be looking for when they go into the in-school suspension room, because that is important. If you've got a teacher who's, we've taken the training, but they're not winning the morning, doing the win the morning, win the day process, then, we're off to a bad start. So we have to make sure that they can support the program as well. But yeah, then that's what I would say logistically needs to happen.
Awesome. So obviously the book is probably the first place for folks to go, and then the
Sure.
course is what I'm hearing.
So the course, yeah, you can look at and access the course through our website, theartofiss.com. and just go to our sales page. It's right there at the top, and you can see what we offer. So if it's something that you'd be interested in having your staff trained on this, then you can get it through the online course. You can also have me come out in person. It's more expensive. But I built the online course specifically for that reason, because people also, they don't have to think about their in-school suspension room. They also don't have a lot of money to invest in something like ISS when there are so many other needs. So we made it fairly affordable I mean, some people have enough money in their sunshine budget to purchase our course and give it to their ISS teacher.
So if someone's wanting to just do a quick assessment and they go into an ISS room or space, what are some things that are like key indicators that are like, "Oh, we need to change this approach. We need a new system."
Oh, so many. First of all, you don't have to go in the room. You can just ask the teachers, is work coming back from in-school suspension? Are you guys, when you send work, or you can just see how many teachers are actually bothering to send work to in-school suspension, because a lot of them, if you're sending something, an assignment, or you're taking time out of your schedule to actually provide something to the in-school suspension room, but knowing that it's a dysfunctional environment, it's not going to come back to you. You're only going to do that one or two times if you're smart before you stop doing it. And there's some people who will just do it as a compliance piece because that's what's expected of them. But people who want to survive teaching, you do the stuff that's important. And if it's not coming back from ISS, it's just going off into a black hole and you're never going to hear from it again, or it's going to come back with IDK written all over it or something like that, then you shouldn't be doing it. It's, I don't blame you for not sending work. So you don't even have to enter the room. But if you do enter an in-school suspension room, I mean, some red flags, obviously students sleeping, students with headphones on, particularly AirPods, because even if they say they're using them for work, we don't allow that at all. They have to be wired headphones if they are necessary for a for an assignment, for an audio assignment, something like that. What else? How often is the administrator called to the room? Because that should very infrequently be happening. What else? I mean, there's so many things. I mean, just any in-school suspension room, just go and you'll see. Are they making them come in and copy the rules in the morning? Are they trying to find work? Are they redirecting I've seen teachers, oh my goodness. I have seen a teacher an in-school suspension teacher threaten to write a kid up, and it's not even 10 minutes into first period yet. And I'm just like, where are you going to go from here? You got them all day. Like, you're going to call an admin second period? Like, what's going to happen? This is a terrible strategy. So one of the things, do they have a behavior ladder that makes sense for in-school suspensions? Stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, I could go on all day about the things I can see wrong going in an in-school suspension
Yeah.
room. Do they even have the furniture set up correctly? But all that stuff is in the course. I teach people. That's where I start. I'm like, how do we arrange the desk? Let's start there. Let's start with the feng shui of
That's a
the
great,
ISS room.
that's a good starting point. Something Charlie and I talk about too. Consider your environment, right? That's something we have control over and things we don't even think about. So I love that so much. I'm going to put in the chat for everyone. You're providing a free book giveaway, and there's a form that folks can fill out for that. So if they're looking to either purchase the book or put in their name and information for this book giveaway, what are they going to get with that resource?
Yeah, I will send. I'm giving away 3 copies of The Art of In-School Suspension. So whoever signs up, I will do a little raffle of the names, and or I'll just pick 3 names, and they will get a copy of The Art of In-School Suspension.
Awesome. Are you going to notify them by email, Johnathan?
Oh, sure, certainly. Yeah,
I'll
if they're in the forum, I will reach out immediately. I'm going to ask you for your mailing address so that I can mail you the book. And don't be freaked out. I'm not a stalker. I just need that as a place to ship to.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, Johnathan.
Yeah, thank you guys.
This is wonderful information. Yes. And I know a lot of folks are going to benefit from not only the book, but then also this conversation is universally a place that probably needs to improve. So make sure that you're going into the chat here, clicking on his website, making sure you're grabbing the book. I know it's going to benefit not only the campus, but probably actually district-wide, as Johnathan works with a lot of educators, like I said earlier.